Steven, great to see you. Welcome to Pop Alternative.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks for having
Spooky season, and we're getting a new Hell House movie, and it's so exciting. I kind of want to know, and you can go back to the original Hell House films, but like, do you separate the writing and directing component when you're making these films? Are they two different hats, or are they one hat when you're making a Hell House film?
Yeah, I think they're one hat. I write everything I write. I'm oh in my head is how are we going to shoot this? And then obviously when we get to set, it's working in production is completely different than the writing process, but the writing process is always just thinking about, how is this going to be filmed? And I think any filmmaker out there knowing when you're writing, you always you don't have a budget. You really have to pay attention to the scenes you write and the words you write, and knowing like not only how are we going to film this, but how are we going to afford this? So there's a lot of production plans that need to go into every part of the script.
There are so many ways how we're watching and consuming content, especially in the spooky kind of world of horror films as well. TV and film. With TV, there's the, binging everything at once and then the week to week
Yeah.
drops. With films, there's the like theatrical releases, the film festivals, and then, people get pockets of people get to see the film festivals, then it goes on a streaming platform like Shudder. How often are you conscious or like thinking about how the content you are making is being consumed while you're making it? Or is that something that happens a little bit after you wrap, so to speak? Because I find it interesting how there's so many different ways to watch things.
Yeah, for Hell House never really is in consideration for how this is going to be shown. For me, just the writing process is never. I'm never really thinking about how it's going to be consumed. I think it was always meant. I think obviously by the fifth Hell House, I knew this was going to be a Shudder release film, so I knew it was going to be mostly consumed through streaming.
Yep.
Going to that, so having that brief theatrical window beforehand was a surprise. It was never really meant, but it was a welcome surprise, obviously. But I knew Hell House movies. They're not big. They're not nothing big about them. So I think I know in the back of my head, yes, this is a streaming movie. Most people are going to see this on Shudder, then maybe later on Amazon, stuff like that. So I mean, I think I know in my head that it's going to be streaming only.
But I also like think about it even a step further, where I'm talking about like, especially things in the creepy kind of found footage worlds. I mean, these movies are going to be part of like, Halloween family friends movie marathons forever. And I think that's exciting to think about, right? You know what I mean?
That's
Like you're
awesome.
making
No, I love that. I love that. I see that all the time online. People include that in their October viewing every year, and it's that. I mean, that's it means everything to me. That's so cool to see that.
Absolutely. Every time you make a new film, whether it's a Hell House or just in general, even when you're making like sequels or something in that world, it's like, how are we going to make it, bigger? How are we going to make it better? There's always those things, right? Like, what are we going to do with
Mhm.
this one that we didn't do in previous ones? With Lineage, what can you tell
Mhm.
me that was something very kind of like, I mean, it's a Hell House film. You know what I mean? But like, is there
Yeah.
anything specifically with this one that was important to you to kind of put in that wasn't in the previous film, so to speak?
Yeah, I guess I wanted to make it more cinematic. Obviously, keep it fresh. The move from found footage obviously was not met with glowing praise.
Hmm.
I get that. So I wanted to make it different, and it was the fifth film in the franchise. And I think the toughest thing to do is to keep something fresh and different when you're within the same world, and keep it original in a way as much as you can. And so I kind of feel like what I wanted to do was actually have a more cinematic style of storytelling rather than found footage, and that was my way of just trying to keep it fresh. And but I get it. I know a lot of the audience they came for the found footage, so a lot of them was like, "What happened to the found footage?" That's why I'm here. So I get that. But there's four previous found footage films in this series, so there's plenty of found footage within the world of Hell House, and some of it doesn't have that.
I feel like I would say, the first Hell House came out at a time where we were seeing a lot of elevation and heightened popularity and innovation with horror movies. And I remember, thinking about movies like The Conjuring and The Insidious. I think those really started the big kind of like James Wan, the big boom of horror films. I'm just wondering, now you look at how popular horror movies are right now, and this is the fifth Hell House. I'm just wondering, just from a storytelling perspective, Stephen, like what's it like working in the genre now compared to 10 years ago, where everything is very heightened popularity and innovation wise? I'm just wondering about that.
I've always thought that horror is just such a great genre for any young filmmakers to get into because there's such a a built-in audience already that's there that will consume horror shorts, features, whatever. I think people just enjoy horror. It's such a great genre to make films in. And when you're a young filmmaker with no audience, trying to find an audience, I think horror is something a great way to venture into because of that. Horror has just grown. When we made Hell House 10 years, or when it came out 10 years ago, I think it's always had that like diehard fan base. People are going to watch it. And what I love about the success of Hell House and other independent films in the same vein as Hell House is that people will see them no matter the budget, no matter who's in it or not. You don't need the name actor. That's great if you have them. If you don't, that's okay. Horror audiences want a good scare, and it doesn't take a lot to do that. It doesn't take a lot of money. It doesn't take millions of dollars to scare people. It takes just a good concept. So I love working within horror. Horror's obviously it just keeps on growing and growing, and I love that about horror, and I love consuming horror. I love making horror. So it's I think it's just great for the industry that horror is just has gone as big as it has.
And I'm excited to ask you this, and I'm talking more about moments and scenes. I'm not talking about the film because you did talk about, the move away from found footage with the
Yeah.
Hell House franchise. But I'm curious because the horror movie fans are very passionate. They're very dialed in. I think they're dialed in. They know about everything that comes out. They watch it all and everything. And one of the reasons why I love the Hell House movies is there's always these moments that are always went free in my mind, these creepy kind of scenes and like moments, even though they're like 25 seconds, right, that I remember from the
Yeah.
previous films, right? And, they circulate online and people talk about them and the clips might show up and everything. And I'm wondering when there's like a clip or like a scene in one of your films that people are really resonating with and freaking out about, like excited about, that maybe you didn't think about, right, when you were making it and everything. Does that help kind of like your rankings of your favorite Hell House moments or your favorite Hell House films? Like, I'm just curious about that.
No, I don't think not with the rankings, but I do love seeing like things I wrote, and then when I was in the writing process, where I was like, especially with the scares, in my head I'm like, I don't know if this works, and I'm hoping it works, and so I wrote this scare, like for instance in Origins, there's this scene where this girl just peeks her head around. It's in the daytime. She has this mask on. She peeks her head around the corner. When I was writing, I was like, this is daylight. All she's doing is peeking her head around the corner. To me that feels scary, but I don't know if that's going to translate. So I always love when I see people talk about the scene or see just like little videos of it online on Twitter or TikTok, whatever people show that. It's for me, it's just gratifying to know like it worked. Like where I was so questioning myself, like is this going to work? And then when you see other people are retweeting it and putting it on TikTok, then you're like, and then it's kind of just verifies like what I had in my head did work, and I love that for that reason, just kind of confirming what I was writing a year previous. Like it did sit well with some horror fans. It worked out for them.
Throughout the entire production process of a Hell House film, you are constantly having conversations. I'm talking pre-production, I'm talking during production, I'm talking post-production. I'm even talking about when it's out, right? Like you're talking to press and everything.
Hmm.
Conversations are always going to happen. You're talking to people about these films, right? Until
Hmm.
they're out, essentially. When do you like, or I wouldn't say like, but when do those conversations for the Hell House films happen the most for you with your actors, with your crew, with producers? Do they happen like while you're making it? Is it a lot of kind of like game plan, like pre-production, and then it's go time for the going to camera? Is it
Yeah.
afterwards? Like, I'm just curious about that.
No, it's always right before. It's always the lead up to the film is where I mean, it has to be. If you, especially with a small team, small budget, you got to be as prepared as possible. And so, my team and I, the actors, we're always conversing the most right before we go into production. And then that's so therefore when we are on set, everyone's dialed in, everyone's ready to go. There's no questions about, we have already discussed the game plan. I come with the visuals of what we're doing each and every day. And so because you have to be, you can't get behind schedule. So I think a lot of that, all that talk happens beforehand. During, which means when the camera's down, we can all relax and either go to bed, talk, not work talk for a little while and hang out, and then go to bed. But I think if you're not prepared, then it's always going to be frantic. Nobody's going to be relaxed, and you want to have a nice relaxed atmosphere. That does not happen if you're not prepped, if you're past schedule. No, nobody's having a good day though, but a good well-oiled machine, good crew, everyone being prepared, having all these conversations beforehand helps production go smoothly. So the most I'm talking to people the most before we start shooting.
Are you the type of filmmaker that has the movie, well, as much as you can, because things change, but are you the type
Yeah.
of filmmaker that has the movie in your head
Yes.
before going to production?
Every edit, every
Yeah.
cut, every edit, everything's in my head. Yeah,
Is it
and
is it
I think that's
stressful
true with most filmmakers. What's
with
that?
indie film too? Because you like it's indie film, right? Like you said, low
Yeah.
budgets and everything. It's sometimes it's like, this something might happen that it's like,
Mhm.
okay, now it can't be like this in my head, right? Like how do you
Yeah.
overcome that, so to speak, in like indie
It's
film?
over preparation. You just
Yeah.
got to be over. The more prepared you are, then the better prepared you are for when things go wrong. If you don't really know what you're doing day to day, then when things go wrong, you're going to be even further in the darkness. So you just got to prep. Knowing your shots inside out. I think it's fun to experiment, especially in horror. Like try things differently, and like when you have a shot and you're like, "Hey, this looks great. Well, let's try it this way." You can only do that when you know what you want and you know you're over prepared. You got the shot you want, then you can experiment and play around, but I don't want to leave it to just play around when you get the set, not really having a game plan. So you have the blueprint, execute the blueprint, and then there's time to explore and try things organically and differently. But yeah, I over prepare for everything and know every shot in my head beforehand. And you got to know that it cuts together. You got to know that everything you're shooting, all those shots are going to cut together and make sure there's no gaps because there's no money to come back and reshoot anything. So if you miss a shot or miss something, it's like, oh shit, these two things don't connect. That's a problem. So you have to know all that ahead of time because you can't be like, let's go send a crew and pick it up. Not going to happen. So you have to, the film kind of has to be already assembled in your head in a way.
Absolutely. And last question too. I'm just curious because, the horror movie like fan consumes everything and watches a lot of content, and
Yeah.
I'm wondering because someone's favorite horror film and the scariest horror film they've ever watched, I feel like those are two different things. You know what I mean? Like completely different things. Are you conscious of that as well? Like the landscape of like the lists, the, landscape also of like certain types of genres and certain kind of effects that like horror films have had on certain people for filmmakers. Like, is that something that you really kind of take pride on, like as a filmmaker? Because I've seen a lot of interviews you've done, and like you definitely love the craft and everything, but it's like there's different things. Like a Hell House film might be like someone's favorite film. It might be their scariest film. It might be the weirdest film they've ever seen. Like that's
Yeah.
important to think about. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. For me, all that matters is scary.
Yeah.
And I just if you that's the only thing I ever try to do with these films. And I think Hell House, the original, succeeded in that. I get so many people that see Hell House for the first time, still 10 years later, and they reach out to me and say like that was genuinely scary, and that's what means the most to me. When people say I was genuinely scared, it's hard to scare me these days, but Hell House scared me. That's the best thing I can ever hear, and I'm always striving to do that. Whether or not we succeed or not is up in question. You could and there's it's debatable certain scares in certain movies and everything, what worked and what didn't, though. But for me, I'm always just chasing how can I best scare the audience? And that's really just it.
I feel like it was also the gateway to all like the clown stuff like coming on the internet now, right? Where you're seeing these like really creepy videos, like clowns
Yeah.
just showing up, walking down the street, and I always
Yeah,
just
no,
go
but that was
back.
big right when Hell House was the original was released back 10 years ago. I remember there was the clown scare going on where a lot of like videos, I don't think things were going viral at the time back then, but there was a clown scare going on, and I remember that. And but it was like we couldn't even play that into our marketing at the time. Not that we had much marketing going on, but like, hey, there's a clown scare going. We have a clown movie going on. Let's play into that. But it was so spooky to people, like their real life. And I remember someone from Terror Films being like, "No, we don't want to get involved with that. That might just like be bad press for us to get because like there's these random clowns scaring people in real life. We don't want to be associated with that." So,
But
but
it made
clowns
people go back
clowns
and
are just
watch it
scary.
though. I remember like seeing those
Yeah,
videos and people saying there's
yeah.
some like found footage films called Hell
Yeah,
House.
they
I
look
don't
like
know.
found footage films. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're terrifying. It's great, but I think like go like hell, like they would be even scarier with something kind of like what I like in clowns is the more muted clown, the dumbed down clown, the less is more clown, not the frizzy hair, the big nose, or everything like that. So I love that's why you have these clowns that are kind of mocked off of like 1920 circus clowns more so with the pale faces. That's the kind of clown I love. And if I saw something like that just hanging out in the street corner, yes, I would go the other way.
Absolutely. Well, I can't wait for people to check out October 30th on Shudder. It's the new Hell House Lineage. I loved it. It was great. Congratulations. Thank you for everything you've done and will continue to do for the genre, Stephen. And it was an honor and privilege to speak with you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Peter, and I can't wait to see your work out there soon too.
I really appreciate it. Awesome.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.